Today, we're joined by Kambiz Naficy, a master of human transformation who has helped thousands worldwide unlock their true potential. Today, I wanted to talk to Kambiz about the invisible scripts that run so many people's lives. Kambiz, we've all had moments where we've felt stuck, whether it's in our career or even relationships or health. What, in your experience, what's really going on when somebody feels stuck somewhere in their life?
When somebody is stuck, they are being driven like a robot by a pre-programmed part of their mind. Imagine this yellow box is your subconscious mind, and in here are all of your scripts. This is your programming that got all set up by the time you were 7 to 9 years old. The programming in your subconscious mind are involves habitual emotions, habitual beliefs, habitual thought patterns, and behavior patterns. Now, when somebody is stuck, instead of being in the moment, gauging the circumstances in the present moment and responding to the moment, something's covering their eyes, so they're not seeing the moment. What's covering their eyes is a programmed mind coming from years ago. And so imagine somebody is sitting in a corporate meeting and there's a lady boss who's kind of authoritative. And this person, while they were a child, this person was raised by an authoritative mom. So then the subconscious mind that has memories of mom being kind of heavy-handed, being too authoritative, that subconscious mind walks into the meeting, is looking at the boss, at the current boss, but it's not seeing the current boss. So memories of an authoritative mom are superimposing themselves on the boss who is right in front of you in the meeting room. And this is how people get stuck. They're not seeing reality. They're walking in their own alternate reality.
Yeah, well, I know for me, I've had a lot of scripts that were embedded in me at a young age, unwittingly by elders around me. And, getting those scripts out that are not always helpful. Some are really helpful. We don't want to go play in traffic or put our hand on the stove, but then there's others that are not so helpful. Um, uh, how do the scripts get in the subconscious in the first place?
Well, it's quite simple if you think about it. A baby is born with zero programming. That baby lands in a home with some adults in that home. And because the baby is born with a fresh mind, there's no previous recordings, that baby starts to record anything he or she sees, hears, and witnesses. So let's say the baby's born. By the time the baby's 2.5 years old, the baby's witnessing, let's say, a very angry father or a very jealous mom. And the 2-year-old, the 4-year-old is witnessing potential fights. It's witnessing potential alcoholism. It's witnessing money worries coming from mom. And the 4-year-old doesn't distinguish between reality and what mom is saying. In other words, mom is God. So if mom is constantly worried about money, 4-year-old child believes that there's a scarcity of money and one should be worried about it. So how we get programmed in the first place is we're born with such clean minds, and we're born into this world with no previous database and knowledge of how to conduct ourselves in this world. So we have to photocopy everything from mom, dad, and other significant adults like the school teachers. And since we don't have our own programming, we have no choice but to be programmed by others that we're witnessing. it can be said that by the time you're 7 to 9 years old, all of the fundamental programming of your subconscious mind is already complete. Your beliefs about sexuality, about your own worth, about money, about God, about Santa Claus, all of that is done and finished with by the time you're 7 to 9 years old.
So, you know, as adults, thinking of this as a database, as adults, what can people do to rewrite that database?
I'm going to answer this in two ways. In one way, the children who somehow are blessed not to believe everything that they're seeing from the grown-ups, those who are more disbelieving of the significant adults' views, perspectives, behaviors, those children become healthier adults because they don't allow the people in their environment to invade their belief system. I've seen this in my own family. My elder brother was less likely to believe all of my parents' beliefs, emotions, attitudes, perspectives. In my case, I was very, very sympathetic to my own mom. And I had kind of a sad, somewhat nervous, anxious mom. And because I was very sympathetic and compassionate, I had a big listening ear, had big eyes, watching my mom very carefully and sympathizing too much. So I really bought into her world. So one of my answers is the people who naturally grow up more healthy are the ones who don't totally buy into the beliefs, the emotions, and the behaviors of the significant adults around them. The other part of the answer is, well, how do we get rid of negative programming once it's occurred? That has to do with a program that I've devised. I've designed a program called Coming Full Circle based on my own journey of healing. I have devised 14 techniques that can open up the doors of the otherwise closed off subconscious mind. I help you open up the doors of a subconscious mind that's otherwise closed. Once you get in there, I help you speak the language of the subconscious. The subconscious will not understand your English commands. You cannot say to your subconscious, I'm sick and tired of smoking cigarettes when I'm feeling anxious. It doesn't know what to do with that sentence. The subconscious understands symbols, emotions, diagrams. So if you're a smoker and you walk your subconscious into a cancer clinic and you show it a set of black lungs sitting in an alcohol bottle, subconscious understands the blackness of those lungs and how much the person must have suffered. So it's an emotional mind. It understands pictures. It understands illustrations. It understands symbology. For example, if you hate your stepdad and you write on a piece of paper, I truly forgive and I'm all done with my anger towards my stepdad. You write that on a piece of paper, you put that in the ashtray, you set that piece of paper on fire, and you blow the ashes out into the sky. The subconscious understands the symbology of setting that hatred on fire, watching it turn into ashes, and blowing it away. It understands that symbology. But if you say, I'm sick and tired of being angry at Harry, my stepdad, subconscious doesn't respond to that.
In another talk, you've talked about how the subconscious responds to the emotional content that we feed it. What techniques can we use? I know techniques I've used. What would you say to the audience if they want to begin to affect their subconscious? Do they need to play with images in their heads, make movies? Like what are some techniques that you teach your students?
Yeah, well, you mentioned movies, so a very famous technique is creative visualization. You close your eyes and you visualize the opposite of your self-limiting beliefs and emotions. So if you're very stingy, you close your eyes and you visualize being kind to people who live in the streets, in soup kitchens.
Yeah.
If you're a very serious person with a big frown, you close your eyes and you visualize, open facial muscles and an easy smile. So visualization is one. Another technique I would recommend is if your subconscious has negative self-limiting beliefs, like I am unattractive, the technique says go and find real evidence in your life of people having been attracted to you. And this works in a very powerful way. A lot of my students who have thought that they were undesirable tried this exercise. They went back 20 years in their lives and thought of all, any and all people who had ever been attracted to them. And they found at least a few examples. Once you find real examples of circumstances that are the opposite of your self-limiting beliefs, that goes a long ways in reprogramming this fellow, the subconscious mind. Because if this fellow thinks that you're unattractive, and then you go back to your memories and you find two people who are in love with you and who are attracted to you, then this apparatus, the subconscious, says, oh, look at this. I just found two real examples of people who thought me to be very attractive. So that's a second technique.
I tell you, in my case, I think when I was going through this process, I encountered some feelings of self-blame, like some of this stuff was my fault. And I know that resonates with our audience as well. Recently, we sent out a survey to our audience, and a number of them said that they struggle with blaming themselves for being unsuccessful or not having good relationships or having, health that is not ideal. What would you say to that person about this kind of idea of self-blame?
I would say, and I'm saying this generically about 9 billion people, all human children, while they're growing up, assume that everything is their fault when they see the significant adults being upset at them or being non-loving. So any child that hears scolding from the parents, any child that watches a baby brother, sister walk in and they watch the baby receiving a lot of attention will assume that maybe I am no longer desirable because my baby brother just walked into the room. So here's what I'm saying. Children look at any signs of behavior in their parents. And if those signs of behavior are not unconditionally loving, the child assumes that I must have done something wrong, or that there must be something wrong with me if I walk into the TV room to show dad my crayon drawing and he's watching the news or he's reading the newspaper. The child assumes that this has to do with the low quality of my drawing or my lack of value for my father. This is universal.
I know that in my case, that I waited a long time to dig into this. And my final question to you, and I wish I would have dug into it earlier, but maybe I wasn't ready. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Why is it so important. If people recognize that maybe they have some of this bad programming in their subconscious, why is it important that they deal with it now as opposed to hoping that it goes away or hoping that they can just move on down the road with the same set of subconscious beliefs? Why do they need to deal with it now?
Right. My answer is that your demons, the baggage that is burdening you, will never go away by itself. The reason is, while growing up, anything that happened, any circumstance, any emotion, anything that you experienced that was too heavy to handle, you stuffed in here. Instead of letting it go, you stuffed it in there. So let's say you failed third grade of elementary school, like I did, because of an illness. If failing third grade was too heavy for you to handle, you buried the whole episode in the dark cave of the subconscious mind. Once something is hidden in the dark cave of the subconscious, anytime in the future, if anything in the future reminds you of the original trauma, that old trauma, the old demon, the old piece of baggage will come right back out. This is a quality of the subconscious mind. Anything stored in the subconscious mind will come back out and haunt you if a present day trigger triggers that memory to come back. An example, you're 15 years of age, you're breaking up with your girlfriend in the high school cafeteria, there's a song playing right when this painful breakup is happening. 30 years later, if you hear that same song, all of the same emotions, the same energy level, the same guilt, the same bad feeling will come right back to you. I'll give you an example. This is a very powerful example. When I was a child, John F. Kennedy was shot. And for 3 weeks, moment by moment, the television news would show Daley Plaza in Texas. They would show scenes of the shooting. And we were children, we were glued to the television set, watching the assassination, time after time after time. Now, 50 years later, I went to do a meditation workshop in Dallas. And the person wanted to drive me to my hotel. They didn't know about my background. Their car pulled into Daley Plaza, and my whole world just turned inside out. I mean, I'm talking about within 3 seconds. My heart was beating. I was had a lot of perspiration. There was fear, feelings of being out of control. Why? Because I was 8 years old, and for 3 weeks in a row, moment by moment, ABC News, NBC News was showing the assassination scene, and I was watching Daley Plaza right there on TV.
Yeah, that, as a child, I remember seeing, I wasn't alive at the time, but I remember seeing that too. I also went to Dallas later. That was really a horrific moment. I think because if you look at the way society is now, everybody's got one of these things, and they're just used to seeing crazy violence and all sorts of horrors on their phones, and it doesn't have the impact. When you witness that, when I witnessed that, it's very fresh on the mind, very powerful. Kambiz, I want to thank you for your time, and we will continue on our series of talks, and I hope you have a wonderful new year. Looking forward to continuing.
Happy New Year. I'll see you soon.
Very good.